Thank you for staying on Joy News Desk. Member of Parliament for Keta, Richard Kwashiga, has threatened to challenge the House's approval of government's 2017 budget in court on Monday. Today, his action was triggered by some policy directions in the budget that he claimed violates the 1992 Constitution. Now, he cited the decision to cut down statutory payment to the District Assembly Common Fund as a clear violation of Article 252, Clause 2, which states that at least 5% of annual government revenue be ceded to the fund. In this budget, 34 billion Ghana cedis is the total revenue expectation. And so when you work the 5% out, it is 1.7 billion Ghana cedi, but the government is ceding 1.5 billion Ghana cedi to the District Assembly. So we have MP for Keta, Richard Kwashiga, on the line to explain to us exactly what is motivating him to go to court. Good morning, sir. Thanks for your time. Good morning, Mr. Kwashiga. Thanks for your time. Well, we seem to have trouble with the lines over there. We'll try and rectify it and get some details from him shortly. Good morning, Mr. Kwashiga, if you can hear me. Thanks for your time. Hello, Mr. Kwashiga, if you can hear me. Good morning and thanks for your time. Well, unfortunately, we don't seem to have him on the line there, but we'll raise him up shortly. But the minority in Parliament have actually, a majority, I beg your pardon, have actually responded to this earlier in the week. Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation, Dr. Anthony Akoto-Osei, actually stated that this calculation they're using was actually used previously by the NDC government, and so he does not see why the minority seems to have issues with their calculation. And but MP for Keta is actually saying in an interview he granted to another media house that if it is wrong, well, it doesn't mean it should continue. But I have a lawyer, Paul, on the line to talk a bit of the legalities in this particular issue. Good morning, Lawyer Paul. Thank you for your time.
Yes, good morning.
All right, let's talk about this. MP for Keta is threatening to take the House to the court over the 2017 budget statement that was delivered and approved by the House. So if his request is granted, and according to him, there are some contradictions in the policy statement by this government as compared to what the Constitution is actually requiring. So if it is granted, what happens to that budget?
Well, thank you very much. I think we may first of all have to look at why it must be granted and whether or not it ought to be granted. I think from what I've heard, we made references to Article 252.
Article 252, Clause 2.
Yes, especially Clause 2 says, subject to the provisions of this Constitution, Parliament shall annually make provision for the allocation of not less than 5% of the total revenues of Ghana to the district assemblies for development, and so on. Now, whenever you read the law, especially the Constitution, and it says, subject to the provisions of this Constitution, the Supreme Court has held in a number of cases, and so it is, that you need to then read the Constitution as a whole in this regard and find out whether there is any other provision that may be inconsistent with this one, and to the extent of that inconsistency, then that other provision will prevail over this one. So when you read through, actually you come also to Article 176, that there shall be paid into the consolidated fund subject to the provisions of this article, all revenues or other monies raised or received for the purposes of or on behalf of government. And 172 Clause 2 says, the revenues or other monies referred to in Clause 1 of this article shall not include revenues or other monies that are payable by or under an act of Parliament into some other fund established for specific purposes. So you say that when we talk about revenue in this country, it will appear that it will include, in the first instance, monies that are supposed to be paid to other bodies. And so if you want to take money to be paid by one body from the total revenue without taking into account portions that must also go to other statutory bodies, you may be making a mistake. So in this case, it will mean that clearly the 5% provision that Parliament is to be made for the District Assembly's Common Fund should also take into account provisions that have been made by law to be paid to other bodies, get funds, for example, the National Insurance Fund, and the total revenue of the state, in fact, even includes petroleum revenue, but which by law, portions must be paid, for example, to the Heritage and the Stabilization Fund, and so on. So I think that if we don't take into account even costs for collection of these revenues, I know that some institutions like VAT and so on, there are some monies that are set aside from the revenue they collect. And I think it would have made sense that before you talk about a percentage of revenue, you would have taken care of the cost, the liability, portions that are supposed to be paid to others before you make the provision. Now, of course, the Constitution speaks of provision, not actual amount to the District Assembly Common Fund, and that's my opinion.
So, lawyer, are you in any way suggesting that right from the beginning this is possibly an empty threat?
Oh, well, I mean, it is said that the best place to resolve the controversy is in the court, and I believe in the independence of the judiciary. I think that once a dispute is raised concerning a very important aspect of our law, the Constitution, and I have heard the majority or other persons also disagreeing, I think the best place is to go to court and have it resolved. But since Parliament itself passes and they are in Parliament, of course, the law says that any act or omission, any law passed by Parliament that is inconsistent with or in contravention of the provision of the Constitution, to the extent of this inconsistency, may be declared void by the Supreme Court. So I think you can go to the Supreme Court and test it. But in my opinion, a case can be made for deductions to be made first before setting aside or making a provision of whatever percentage to the District Assembly Common Fund.
Thank you very much for your time, lawyer Yao Pong, speaking on that matter. A threat by MP for Keta, Mr. Richard Kwashiga, taking Parliament to Supreme Court over the approval of the 2017 budget, which he says certain portions actually contradict Article 252, Clause 2 of the Constitution. It's now time for sports here on Johnny's desk. Apologies, we couldn't raise Mr. Kwashiga on the line to find out if you carry out his threat. We'll do that later in our subsequent bulletins. But over the weekend, did you watch that match between Accra Hearts of Oak and Kumasi Asante Kotoko? Well, there's been a lot of controversy, some thinking that the referee actually didn't do a good job. What do you think? George Adojino will join me for some analysis on sports right after this.